One battle brings everybody to Tampa Stadium in Tampa, Florida, where 50,000 screaming race fans are ready for the first qualifying round for super modified mud racers. An 80-foot long mud racing pit with only 80 feet in which to stop past the finish line will confront every one of the attempting qualifiers for a 4-car field. In the far lane, it'll be Gary Osteen's Ford-powered Chevy Corvette called Bad Influence. Osteen on the brakes hard. He touches the 80-foot disqualification banner. He literally gets disqualified by no more than 1 foot. Onesimo watched the run. Now he knows what he has to do. Through the 80-foot, now hard on the brakes to stop at another 80, and he does it by inches. Look at that, less than a foot away from the disqualification line. Onesimo runs 2.20 seconds in the initial 80 feet, a disqualifying 184 for Gary Osteen. John Kreutz in the Magic Moments 1932 Chevy comes sliding to a stop. His elapsed time 2.25 seconds. Not a bad run. This time around, though, it's 3-time and defending world champion Tom Martin in the far lane against this man, Dick Wilson in the A-Team. It was these two drivers back in 1988 at this event that became the first two, with Martin being the initial one, to break the 2-second barrier in this 80-foot sport. Martin shooting for an unprecedented 4th consecutive world championship in the far lane. Wilson, the Florida racer, always tough. Martin, an incredible wheel stand, and he goes out of bounds, disqualified by 5 feet. The world champ can't get it stopped in time. 1.84 seconds for Martin. It would have been good for one of the quickest runs ever through this track, and he is disgusted. In the other lane, Dick Wilson's 2.40 second run will put him in the field. Kevin Kolish in the Hustlin' Hoosier Pontiac Trans Am, of all things, takes on this man, who 1 year ago survived one of the wildest rides we have ever seen. Chad Miller's Instant T. Miller on the brakes, and he goes out of bounds. And he is mad. These guys are really having trouble stopping down here, and Chad Miller throws out an exceptional run of 1.99 seconds. When you're disqualified in mud racing, it's like you were never there in the first place. Kolish runs 2.41 seconds. He'll qualify the Radical Supercharged door slammer in the field, while Paul Schaefer in the Mud Patrol team car of Tom Martin moves up. And because everybody was going out of bounds, Schaefer shuts the engine down before the finish line, trying to get extra room to stop, and that's gonna hurt him. Mike Robinson in his Jeep near lane, far lane, Buddy Curley Supercharged 23T altered, called Snoot. Robinson hard on the brakes. And something in the drivetrain goes away for the Keith Black Chrysler Hemi-powered alternative Curley. Robinson actually gets the victory there at 2.74 seconds. The helmet comes off, and Robinson is happy just to be staying within bounds on that run. Melvin Brown out of Ohio with one of 2 machines he's got in competition, the fuel-injected, nitrous oxide-injected, stretch wheelbase Jeep called Blue Max. Brown sideways, now trying to get on the brakes, and he touches the DQ line, and he can't believe his eyes. At a speed of all of 5 miles per hour, he knocks over the pylon and the yellow banner that marks the 80-foot distance. He loses out on a run of 2:20, but here is the supercharged Ford-powered Thunderbird of Michigan's Mark Watros. If anybody can run under 2 flat and stay in bounds, it's this 2,000 horsepower monster. Incredible, the body comes unlatched, and he just barely touches the marker that will put him out of the field. What an incredible, violent run, getting thrown all over the place. The body actually came unlatched, and he wastes a run of 197. In the near lane, Chuck Knowles, awesome stepchild, basically a drag racing pro stocker with a pickup truck body and 4-wheel drive. He's up against Byron Tinky on the far side. Tinky takes a rough ride all over the track of the Iowa-based Bad Habit. He runs 2.31 seconds, but Chuck Knowles gets there first with a 2.20 second effort. Exceptional run for Chuck Knowles. Byron Tinky was looking to finish in the top 8 in the World Championship Series again this year. Tony Ferrotti out of Detroit, Michigan, the supercharged 1927 Ford Model T Roadster called Let's Boogie, lines up against the Wild Man from Kentucky, T-Ray, and the TNT supercharged Jeep funny car. One last check from the crew, and now Ferrotti is ready to make his move. The TNT Jeep CJ in the far lane. Incredible wheel-standing run for T-Ray, and an equally strong pass for Tony Ferrotti. Ferrotti runs 2.15 seconds, but T-Ray takes the #1 qualifying spot with a pass of 1.99 seconds. Ferrotti looks concerned. His 2:15 may not hold for the 4 quickest qualifiers in this field, but T-Ray leads the pack with that 1.99, followed by a 2:15, a 2:19, and 2:20 efforts recorded by Ferrotti, Paul Schaefer, and Chuck Knowles. That brings us to this week's Power Drive. It was only a few months ago that the great northwestern portion of the United States had its first super modified mud run under 2 seconds flat. In the far lane, Mike Wilkie's Captain America wheels up, records a 1.97 second run to make history in the northwestern states. The run came during the Camel Shootout and was enough to win a 3rd Seattle championship on the U.S. Open Association Trail. That's this week's Power Drive. Still in the middle of qualifying for the 4-car Camel Shootout Super Modified Mud Racing Field. And right now it takes a run of 2.20 seconds to qualify. Here's Gary Osteen again. We saw him earlier. This is his Ford-powered Dirty Bird 55 T-Bird. He'll be up against the Stroll for Gold entry of Frank Wise. A great race, and it's Wise getting there first. 2.16 seconds, and that'll put him in the field right now, stopping within about 5 feet of the DQ line. Meanwhile, the classic Thunderbird ran into problems just before the finish line at 2.61 seconds. But right now, Wise will be a part of the field in the #4 spot. We also saw Melvin Brown earlier in the Blue Max Jeep. This is his other entry, the supercharged Red Heat Dragster. You want to talk about rough rides? Melvin Brown thrown all over the cockpit of that machine. Looking back saying, what did I hit? Melvin Brown at 2.28 seconds will not qualify the short wheelbase Chevy-powered machine. Next up, the Magnum Force #2, Jeep CJ of Mike Jones. This machine was originally one of the 3 first entries ever under 2 seconds flat. He gets the signal to move to the line. He puts it in gear, drops the visor, and puts down a great run on the brakes. Hard, he goes out of bounds by a matter of a couple of feet, and Jones is irritated, rightfully so. His 202 would have gotten him in the show. Ron Smith out of Michigan, the Gold Fever supercharged Chevy-powered 48 Fiat, one of the toughest in the business, lines up against Steve Graham. How about a 1977 Ford Mustang II funny car? There's the 2,000 horsepower Chevrolet in Smith's Gold Fever. Shaking the ground as they both move into the staging beams. Thumbs up from the driver. Smith is ready. He must go quicker than 2:16 to make the field. Problems for Graham, sideways for Smith, but he stops it in time. The Gold Fever driver runs 2.02 seconds and makes the program. Graham never even got to complete the run as drivetrain problems brought him to a stop at the halfway mark. Here's the half-breed of Ronnie Taylor, taking on the always potent, big-bodied blazer of Garland Walls called the Gambler, the nitrous-injected machine in the far lane. The half-breed gets the whole shot, but Walls will drive around him at the finish line. Ronnie Taylor a 264 for the bright orange small-bodied Chevrolet. Garland Walls a great 216. It will come within a couple of thousandths of a second from making the quick four. The radically designed USA 1 entry of Richard Larson. This thing has been around for the last couple of seasons and defies about every law of chassis construction in mud racing today, but it always puts down a strong number. Sideways at the finish line, almost out of bounds before the finish line marker pole. And Larson, still covered with mud, will record a time of 2.31 seconds. It won't get him in the program. That will bring up an absolutely state-of-the-art machine, the fuel-injected, nitrous oxide-injected street roadster of Keith Rowland called Psycho. He'll be up against another guy coming away from a horrible crash here 1 year ago, Tony Lannis's new Dream Chaser 32 Chevy Coupe. They leave the line with Rowland taking it through. Lannis right behind him. Lannis gets disqualified, and listen to this, 1.80 seconds. It would have been good for a new track record. Rowland goes 216 and misses making the field by 100th of a second. Now coming up, and he must go quicker than 216 to qualify. One of the men who is chasing Tom Martin for a world championship, Jeff Acker. Acker gets sideways, but hits the brakes hard and stops it in time. About 5 feet from the disqualification marker. He had to go quicker than Frank Wise's 216 to qualify for the field. 189. He makes the program #1 qualifier. And that's why Acker has been such a threat to Tom Martin's continued dominance of the class. Acker qualifies. They must battle it out on a one-run single-shot program to determine the winner. And the first man up will be T. Ray, the Kentucky veteran in the TNT Jeep. And problems for T. Ray, no power to the front-wheel drive unit. And with just two-wheel drive, you won't get anywhere in this pit. Tony Ferrotti's Let's Boogie Roadster qualified 4th. And Ferrotti runs into problems on the run. Unbelievable. He still records on a lap time of 2:45, but now it's Jeff Acker's turn in the Insanity Roadster from Milwaukee. And Acker's got a good one. He stops it in time at 2.02 seconds, and that will leave this man, Ron Smith, in the Gold Fever to try and better that mark for the championship. The supercharged Chevy from Michigan, with a 1948 Fiat body, readies itself. A great run. He bounces off the berm super hard. He had to go quicker than 2:02. He runs 1.91 seconds. He wins the event. The very last pass is turned into the victorious run for Ron Smith. Jeff Acker's Insanity finishes 2nd, Tony Ferrotti 3rd, and T. Ray 4th in the Camel Shootout.